So this is Joan Breibart. It's Body Conversations. It's January 7th, 2025. And today we're going to talk about, I hope I'm saying this right, Hara Hachi Bun Me. And fortunately, I'm here with Princess Yu Fujita, wonderful Pilates teacher, and of course, Japanese. And she's going to later explain why this is relevant. But first, Yu is an extremely accomplished Pilates teacher, certified a long time ago. And for most people, Pilates means the core. And unfortunately, that's a very limited description. It's much more. But at any rate, they think of it as the space underneath their navel, as they call that the stomach, but it's really the abdomen. And now we're going to talk about the real stomach, which is under your left breast and is a small container. And it relates to 80 bites, which is the physical mind, Pilates, eating, dieting, weight program, shall we say. And because it's 80 and it relates to a very established Japanese concept, which Princess Yu will explain, Yusan, I will call her. And it's known as Hara Hachi Bun Me. Then you'll understand why we're discussing it today. So, how was my pronunciation? Okay?
Yes, you actually said it perfectly. So, Hara Hachi Bun Me means you eat only 80% full, which is same as 80 bites. So, this philosophy is in Japan for a long, long time, a way back where the Shintoism started and where all the philosophy came from China. So, this is a part of our culture.
Wow, so this is almost ancient, right? Well, it's interesting because, my connection with Japan is through you for the most part, but then we had all those Japanese teachers coming over a few weeks ago. It was great. And they're Pilates teachers, and they wanted to have an update, and we did it. And then I asked them through the interpreter about this concept, and they sort of looked at me like, well, don't you understand? This is just what we do. We don't talk about it every day. It's everybody does it. Everybody knows it. It's just accepted, right? Whereas in this country, everybody has, 10 different eating issues and whatever. So, I was very, very intrigued. And then I told my granddaughters, my two granddaughters, you've met them,
Mhm.
1 6, 1 8, and they love Japanese cuisine. They want sushi. In fact, when it's their birthdays, they ask to go out for omakase. And that is something I need you to explain because most people don't know what it is.
So omakase is, especially in a sushi setting, um, the sushi chef makes personalized the sushi course for the each client or the customers who sits right in front of the chef at the sushi counter or the bar, and he watches how customer eats. So if chef meets customer for the first time, then he just see how customer eats and their speed, their preference, how they put soy sauce or not, they like spicy or not, and he just pays his customers preference and the speed how he serves it. And it's also not just about food the customer likes to eat or the amount. He also watches how this customer is bringing clients and they start talking about business and they pause and they don't eat. Then he'll stop serving so that his food, fresh sushi, won't get dried out and sitting in front of the clients for few minutes, and then his food won't be so enjoyable and fresh anymore. So he just watches it, and then they start eating and they start eating, then he start making another one, And then there's not so much chef asking too much question to the customer. Would you like this, or do you want me to serve now? He just would observe it patiently and carefully. And then they start having a sort of like um, natural chemistry and communications, very subtle way. And then when the clients come back, when customer comes back to the sous chef again next time, the chef is remembering how his customer ate it. So that's how they kind of built up their customer chef relationship. So they never over presenting, overfeeding customers.
Wow. You know what for me, of course, and watching my young granddaughters, you have to be adventurous, which is something that doesn't exist in America,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know what the chef is going to make you.
Right.
And American kids, basically their diet is pizza, burgers, hot dogs, chicken nuggets, and they see anything that doesn't look like one of those items, and then they don't know if they want to eat it. Whereas my two sons, and of course my granddaughters, they've been brought up to be curious and adventurous and see something and think, well, what will that taste like?
Mm-hmm.
And how it worked years ago was my husband deciding he would make it as a competition between the two boys who were 3 years apart. So one of them might be 5 and the other was 8, and Peter, as the 8-year-old, would be eating oysters, right? And he'd
Mm-hmm.
say to Rod, well, you have to do that now. Look at your brother doing it. And so
That's great.
they did it because they wanted to, in a sense, compete, but also they didn't want to think, oh, I can't do it. They were encouraged to do it. And so people don't understand, what it is to be so interested in food and what we call here in America a foodie culture, which is what Japan is. I mean, my younger son Roger there is just astounded at the diversity of all these restaurants and the foods and whatever. And yet, and this is what Americans don't know. So here you have a culture of people who love to eat, love, love, love it, and do it, right? And yet there's almost no obesity, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think it's 3.8%, and here it's 63%,
Mm-hmm.
right? And everything about food here is fear, not love. And but there's another part, because Japan saw this in 2008. They would come to Disney World and look at Americans in 2008, and they went back and they instituted this thing they call the metabolic measure or something, where annual waistline measurement, and there's a
Mm-hmm.
maximum of 35 inches, and if your waist is over that, well, then measures have to be taken. And
Mm-hmm.
so if people do that here in America, when now we understand that the BMI is absurd, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we'll be, particularly because of these great drugs, we'll be moving in the right direction. So is it the measurement, or is it the love, or whatever? But you've told me this.
Because we just don't overeat. We just eat what tastes good. And also, in Japan, we have saying things, we eat with our eyes. So, like, here in America, a big culture, big country, the bigger the better. In Japan, small country, small people, small the better. In a way that when it's so delicately presented, and it looks so good and tasty, that's how we want to enjoy, and we're nourishing our eyes and then the brains, and then so that brains tell us that we want to eat it. So it's not about quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, so different. I mean, I have to tell you that that 80 Bites was called Diet Directives when Meredith Luce, who's my friend and partner and the greatest dietitian, we started this in 1987. And right from the beginning, Meredith said, we have to reference this Japanese concept. And I said, Meredith, it's impossible. Most Americans don't even know what sushi is, or
Mm-hmm.
Japan, or anything. And I was the one who said no. And she kept saying, yes, but we want to make them understand that it's not just, overeating, it's bad for your stomach, because we were always stomach focused. Long before these drugs came out, we knew that was the area. It wasn't calories. So I nixed it. I said, I don't think we can use that term. And I was wrong. And now, of course, we are. And now people are beginning to understand it. But Back then, 1987, I mean, people had no idea where we were going with all these crazy diets and exercise and the food manipulation, everything that happened. And so, we've gotten people to the point in America where they're hungry all the time. I mean, they can't eat until 80% because, they're ravenously hungry. But when we talked about this before, I remember you said to me something and then I did it immediately. And it's about a film. You told me, the way you're talking about
Yes.
food, Joan, you need to watch this film. So tell me and tell everyone else a little bit more.
So this is actually one of my favorite Japanese movie, and then also my American husband's favorite Japanese movie. Um, I think it was filmed back in the 80s, and it's called Tampopo. It's about the single mother who just lost the mother who lost a husband and has to raise her child by herself and taking over her husband's ramen ramen noodles shop. And I think she was just helping her husband all her time, that she never really cooked entire noodle by herself. So she's gonna start learning how to cook, and then just slowly goes on by her running into this truck driver who just happened to stop by her noodle shop, and they were shocked how bad the ramen noodle was. And
I
then he just
remember.
like jumped in and he started cooking for her and start teaching her, and he just started like training her, and all his friends comes, and all this truck driver's friends comes, and then they start training her how to boil the hot water and the right temperature, and how the noodle needs to be cooked al dente and not in this way, how the all these garnish scallions and you know, meat and the vegetable has to sit on which side, and then how like have the soup and then noodles and everything, and then all four other different small short stories goes on parallel to the whole film, and each story just have something about food, and it's just it's so
They're
funny.
wonderful.
It's funny and sexy, and it just shows how Japanese people obsess with eating good food without any judgment or anything. It just goes so obsessed eating, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
great food.
So I remember when you told me before I watched it, you said, make sure you can have some ramen afterwards. That's all you'll be thinking about, right? And of course, where I live in Chelsea, there's a Japanese restaurant on every block, just about. So, that wasn't hard.
Mhm.
But it was true. As soon as I did it, I mean, it's not only it's just funny, but it's sexy, and it's there was an American film years ago called Tom Jones where there was a scene where the man and the woman, the leads, were eating I think a turkey drumstick, and it was very sexual, right? You can imagine. But basically speaking, now everything is antiseptic and healthy and unhealthy and all this other kind of stuff. And this is sexy. And I guess one of the things that I said was that, and that's why you told me about this film. I said, we have it all wrong here. Exercise, what we do, Pilates, exercise, that's for your health. You need to do it, whether you like to or not, you must do exercise. But food, of course, you want to do because it's enjoyable. It's closer to sex than it is to, exercise, which is closer to dental hygiene, right?
Right.
Yeah, something we all know you have to do it. You don't want to lose a thing, and you said that yourself when we were talking about it.
Right. Nobody said I'll just skip flossing or brushing teeth. No one says that. So we just do it, and it's just like that.
Yeah, right. You have to do it, whether you like it or not, because you don't want to lose your teeth. And then you go to the dentist and they start ragging you about all your, gum problems and everything that's
Right.
going. But so the concept of Hara Hachi Bun Me, it's philosophical, but it's really, we've translated it so to a practical thing by 80 bites. And it's not as if we want people to all of a sudden just do nothing but count and tally them. In fact, I
Right.
took off our app this daily counting up and tally. Yes, you can input it, but it's not that kind of thing because people are tracking all these things and it's making them really crazy. It's not like they're benefiting from all this stuff that they're doing. But, as you said, there's a difference between eating something with a chopstick, right? And how much you can put on the chopstick and a big spoon.
Right.
So
Right.
this is a guide, right? It makes you understand things a little more.
Right. It's important how you measure things. Like when I actually start doing the 80 bites many years ago, and I was just sitting and it's like what I eat. Let's say edamame, when you take it out from the pods, and then there's just two or three edamame, and then if you eat it by just a mouth through it, you get two or three all at once. But if you're using a chopstick, and if I would pick one beans at a time from this rice bowl or something, then I can only pick one beans with chopstick. And then I was like, wait a minute, that was just a count as one. So, but then if I have spoon or fork, then I can shovel all the beans, maybe 20 beans at a time, and then put it in the mouth.
Yeah, eventually what it is common sense, and you don't have to count. I don't have to count. Our stomachs are counting for us.
Right.
We're just saying, oh, how many bites did I take? The stomach is saying, hey, you can't eat anymore, and you don't want to eat anymore. But basically,
you're training your stomach.
You're training your stomach. That's it, and it talks to you. But when your stomachs are so overstretched, whether it's because you've had huge kale salads or you've had too many cookies, that's where this hunger has come from. But no one understood it because everything was all focused on calories.
Also, I also thought that you can just train your own visual things. Like I remember you asked me like when we're eating together and the salad ball comes and like how many bites do you think this is? And I was like, I don't know, 50, 30, and like you would say like, no, this is gonna be like a 75 bites.
Right.
That's impossible. How they serve it. So then you know immediately before you start eating, okay, half of the salad I'll take it home. Something like that. You start training yourself.
Yeah.
Naturally.
So what I think for you, of course, was easy because being Japanese, your eye is trained to look at the food, but you're really looking at presentation and beauty, aesthetics. Now if you were trying to explain this to an American, you say, okay, now how much is there, right? Get an idea, so if you found out and these places that sell food and they have the calorie counts. So that doesn't teach you anything about your stomach. Oh, this is 300 calories, right? But it's 500 bites, right?
Right.
Which
and then
is
also you talked about the eating 80 bites eating balanced food, and a lot of times in Japan the big glass of water doesn't come with the meal, and maybe we'll have a cup of tea at the end because we have maybe miso soup or something, always soup within that meal, and then there's always like salad or some simmered vegetable dish, so that has a different flavor, and then you just move around the one to the other dish, and then maybe there's a palate in between, so you don't have to drink water to wash your mouth, because once you start drinking so much water in between the food, then you wash out your mouth and then the flavor is gone, so then you're gonna have to pour the murder with the salt with each dish, and then you consume so much salty food, then therefore you have to drink a lot more water, and then it's just like going to snowball that you're drinking so much water in between the food,
right
in between the dish.
But you see, you're not looking as an American would at food and thinking, I'll eliminate this, this nice little salad thing or what the soup to save the calories, right? You see it as part of the whole experience, and this texture and flavor and whether it's hot or cold or whatever, they all complement one another. So that's sophisticated eating, and that's totally lost here. I mean, it's completely, people cannot understand that all this, quote, saving of calories has led to where they are, which is obviously not good. But remember, now people are even afraid to have alcohol because of it.
It got so extreme now.
It got so, and now what you understand, and
right. People used to have a pre-dinner drink.
Right.
And I think that's exactly the reason that people, over century to century, they have a little bit of like alcohol, a little bit of cocktails
Yeah.
to just enhance.
But it immediately raises your blood sugar
Right.
because it's liquid and alcohol, and then it takes the edge off your hunger. But now, of course, we're getting rid of all that, saving those calories, right?
And then you eat tons of salad.
Yeah, and tons of food. But you see it at the worst. The worst aspect of all of this that's come to it by when I've told you I've been on these Ozempic and Mounjaro Facebook groups. And here are people, I mean, lightly saying, I have 200 pounds to lose. I mean, a woman, 200 pounds to lose. I just got an email yesterday from a wonderful woman who read the anti-wellness diet and just loved it, right? Surprisingly. But she said, I've 210 pounds to lose. I can't believe it. But anyway, she said, I know everything about nutrition. And she's in her late 30s and she's been dieting her entire life. And she knows every single thing about nutrition and what has it done? Made her fat, right? But the point that I'm saying to you is that it was all so unnecessary, but yet people thought it was correct. They didn't look at other cultures, right? And say, well, look at how they are. They don't seem to have a problem. They enjoy food, right? They're not picking and whatever. I mean, that's it. And then we've lost every part of the enjoyment.
Right. The tempo of a movie makes you realize the beauty of sharing the experience of eating together and together the same meal, because that's really important.
The same meal, right? Yeah. And now, of course, we've heard this, even if a family sits down, the daughter is vegan and the son is only keto and this one is that. Nobody is eating together.
And they're also eating, exactly, not eating together makes you want to binge eat more because you don't know. Because when you are eating by yourself, you're not talking, you're watching or reading, you don't even notice how much you're eating.
No. And they're not really eating together. They may be at the table, and that's not often the case either. But, one of the things I think that was interesting is when these, wonderful Japanese Pilates teachers came over, they brought me gifts. And so many of them were adorable little candies and cookies, and they were wrapped beautifully and they tasted great. And I love them and I was appreciative. Of course, if they'd given it to another person in America, what I would call a wellness bitch, they would have looked, oh, sure, this is horrible. But what is it? You say to me now that this is a false impression that Japanese people only eat raw meat, right?
Right.
Raw fish.
Well, Japanese people love sugar, loves sweets, and we have a lot of sweets too. And we do eat a lot of sweets. It's not like we just eat raw meat, raw fish, and sushi every day. No, it's not like that. We eat steak, and we have lots of white rice.
That I have to talk about that because that's the funniest part. And I think it was in the 80s this happened. I mean, you weren't here, you don't remember. But what happened was some people in America got the idea that rice and bread, because they were white. I think this came from Yves Saint Laurent, who was a brilliant designer, but crazy when it came to his addictions. Anyway, so he was only going to eat white, right? So he gave up everything. No red wine, only white wine, only fish, whatever. And so off the list was rice and bread. And this was hysterical because we're talking about Asia where the thinnest people are, or bread in Europe, which people would always have. But for us, all of a sudden, those two things were making us fat, right? Whereas when someone said, well, but wait a second, I mean, more than half the world, this is a staple, and they're not fat.
Right.
So,
because we just don't overeat.
Yeah,
But Japanese people eat rice every day, maybe 2 or 3 times a meal. And the white bread, they enjoy it. We just don't overdo it.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
So remember I told you about this diet thing in Self Magazine?
Yes, I can't believe that Self Magazine is starting diet detox.
Detox, right. Yeah. Now, of course, you don't have this recollection, but I do, because when the first issue of Self Magazine came out, it was 1980. I saw it. And from then on, so we're talking, 45 years here, every single cover of the magazine was a diet, a new diet. And
Mm-hmm.
nobody thought there was anything wrong with, oh, I'll do this diet, then I'll do that one, then I'll try this, and the same with exercise, whatever. So they're not apologizing, but they created this problem, and not just they, of course, all the media. The media really love this, that they could constantly publish a new diet, a new exercise, a new thing to eat, and new things to glorify and demonize, and this was good and that was bad and whatever, and you eat only column A and then sometimes column B, but if it's raining in Bermuda on a Thursday, only C, right? I mean, it's these constant manipulations, and everybody was suckered into it. Nobody ever said that we would end up having to change our wardrobes, right?
Right. And even in the fashion world now, baggy jeans is a big trend. And even the trend, the fashion is adjusting to the people, how people are now, which is kind of sad. And um because like my daughter, who is very thin, and she's 11 and a half years old, and she has a hard time finding clothes that she likes to wear now, and then following still the trend, because everything is so big sweatshirts, baggy jeans, baggy sweatpants,
Oh, that does not look
baggy
good on Sarah.
everything.
No, nothing.
Right.
But Monica, and Monica, your client, my daughter-in-law, who's Portuguese and was a model, and my two granddaughters too. They're tall and they're very slim,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting. 6 and 8, they're fashionista sort of, but they no one really is saying anything, but Monica worries that as they grow older and they stay slim, that there
Mm-hmm.
may be a backlash against them. I mean, in other words,
Mm-hmm.
all this fat acceptance people are saying, oh, well, people made fun of us because we're fat, which really wasn't the case. But now she's thinking maybe it'll go the other direction, right? Because
Right.
let's face it, it's not it's just not possible for people to understand this total thing. It's 60 years. It started with Weight Watchers in 1963. And, it's a fundamental change. So when you go shopping with Sarah at this point, I mean, she's older than my granddaughters and 11 and a half, and she wants to do this clothing thing,
Mm-hmm.
you have to say to her, what?
Well, I just like want her to be happy, but I said, you can't just wear the baggy clothes because it looks silly, and you don't have to follow the trend, and just to be yourself. And it is hard for her because all her friends are especially going, like, starting a puberty, and some girls are start getting a little wider and thicker, and I
Yeah.
wouldn't say overweight. I wouldn't say it,
Yeah.
because
But
it's
people are,
puberty is a sensitive time.
yeah.
Some kids gain a lot of weight first before they thin up and tall. um we don't know, or they just stay wide and thick. And then Sarah, she hasn't started, so she just like very thin.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think this is something that no one wants to talk about it. No one can even believe, because nobody ever thought that a little child who was maybe chubby would grow into a fat person, because they were growing, vertically.
Right.
They started to grow a little horizontally, but it's different. It's not like an adult, right? We've grown, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is. So if we overeat, we get rounder. But that's what's happened. It's children. I mean, I saw, Saltaire, you've been there with me,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a little kid, a toddler, maybe 3, and he had his own Stanley, what is that, water thing?
Stanley
Right,
water
right. Now they have them for
bottle.
toddlers. Now this kid, 3, was, I'm not going to say fat, but he was really chubby.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, now he's being fed by his mother, this wellness wonder, all these ideas about
Mm-hmm.
over drinking. The first thing happened in this water area that I didn't expect, because for years I've been saying this is all just playing with water and our most precious resource, and it's not going to wash the calories right. There's a guy was on Instagram, I have to find it, and he was saying, stop over drinking water, you're diluting your electrolytes. So what he's really saying is your body chemistry was not designed to have gallons of water which you think are hydrating you and purifying you and washing away the calories. As the first person with the courage to say it, because every single person thinks the more water you drink, the better, right? Aside from the fact it's the most precious thing. But, for me, of course, I'm 83. I have a very long history. I was born and there was food rationing in America in the 40s, right? And of course, how the starvation in Japan and everywhere. But people forget all that, or they were not born and they don't know about it. So I had food rationing. We saw all these people in Europe and Japan, and of course the people coming out of the camps, they were starved, just starved, right? And so when I was, let's say Sarah's age, I was skinny, and people with no PC, people would come up and say, "You're a scarecrow," and they pinch me, put on some weight, because people didn't want to see that degree of thinness because they associated with the horrors of World War II. But then that passed, and all of a sudden we have Twiggy, remember Twiggy the model, and one day people are telling me, "Oh, you're so skinny, you look terrible," and the next day they're saying, "What do you do to keep your figure?" I could become crazy, right? But basically speaking, you can sum it up by saying exactly what it is.
Yeah, so people can relax and eat only to 80% full. And the more the people do it, the less you eat, the less hungry you will be.
Yeah, and that's what they have yet to find out. But we have a solution now. It's these miracle GLP drugs.
Right.
And understanding this wonderful concept of Hara Hachi Bun Me and 80% in the stomach and hormones. And boy, I'm so glad that you gave me this idea, which in 1987 Meredith wanted to do, and we didn't, because it helps to explain 80 bites. And this is so simple, but yet for most people, not simple, right? Just like Pilates. They never got Pilates. It took us all these years before people did it. So
that's right.
Right. So now it's Pilates for the mouth, 80 bites. Thanks.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.